From the Cold Formed Steel Buildings Association, this is Cold Formed Buildings Made Easy with your hosts, John Cosper and Lauren Toole.
Hello and welcome to Cold Formed Buildings Made Easy. I'm John Cosper and with me is my co-host Lauren Toole. This is the podcast dedicated to cold formed steel buildings, talking about what they are and how they're designed, how they're engineered and sold. And today we're talking to a guy who has built a really nice career around cold formed steel buildings. He is part of the Metal Sales Impact team. Impact is their brand name for cold formed steel buildings. Started out as a territory sales manager and has worked his way onto the Impact branded team. Really kind of built kind of a cottage industry up in the Wyoming area and Colorado and some of the surrounding states for cold formed steel buildings. Very happy to have Corey Lincoln on today. Corey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's always nice to see you too, John.
Good to see you as well.
Corey Lincoln here. I spent a good majority of my career in metal roofing and wall panels, mostly on the commercial side of things. I was traveling a lot, spent a lot of time away from home. And when Metal Sales reached out to me to take over the Wyoming territory, I kind of jumped all over it. So from there, I was given essentially the smallest territory that Metal Sales had to manage. And my commission was based off of pounds that was leaving the plant. So the best thing I found, the heaviest thing that I could sell was cold form metal buildings, which at the time I was actually unaware that Metal Sales even manufactured. So if I kind of jumped into it feet first and had a lot of good contacts out here already. And we just started building cold form buildings all over the state.
How long have you been doing it, Corey?
I think now 2 years, 3 years, maybe. I think it's 3 years that I've been with Metal Sales. You know, my metal roofing and wall panel background goes all the way back into the early 2000s.
So, Corey, I know you talked about you were looking for what was the heaviest pounds and the thing that would get your commission up the most based on how commissions were paid out. But a lot of outside sales guys, it's been my experience, they're not real keen to jump in on something like cold form buildings because there's a bit of a learning curve with the design software and things like that. But how did you find it when you first started using it?
Right. I mean, I found it pretty simple, right? I mean, if you can run any sort of Microsoft programs and be pretty proficient at them, and, you know, I'm talking things as simple as PowerPoint and Excel and Word, adopting that software is pretty simple. The front of it is very simple, right? Width, length, height, that sort of thing. There's a lot more on the back end that you can do once you gain more experience. But for me, it was, you know, as an outside salesman at the time, you have a lot of downtime in your hotel rooms at night, even sometimes during the day. And I would just sit down and use the software and build buildings. I was begging my guys to give me buildings to build, right? Like I might not get a sale from it, but give me some pole barns or some buildings that you've already quoted and let me build them in the software. And that's where I gained a lot of my experience.
What challenges have you seen doing cold form or the program?
You know, as far as the challenges goes, right, I think learning the entire process from actually designing the building in the software, selling it to your client, helping your client sell it to their end user, and working through the whole engineering process, understanding how that process works, paying the engineering fees, and getting a building sold and on the ground is the biggest challenge. If I can get an account to sell a building and get one on the ground and get it erected, my accounts can usually just hit the ground running. You know, it takes one or two, but then it's fully automated. I don't hear from them anymore. They're ordering buildings. You know, the biggest challenge is getting that first one on the ground for me.
What's the typical pitch that you give guys? And I mean, I'm not sure what type of buildings most folks are doing up in that area, whether it's wood or red iron or a combination, but what's kind of your pitch to introduce cold formed and to get them to give it a chance?
You know, I've done a lot of different ones up here, and contractors are the guys I love to see, right? I love to go find the guys on the ground who are doing their own thing right now, who are trying to build a business around some sort of direction in the construction industry. And a lot of my pitch is them being able to manipulate the software and the building design in any way that they want to sell it to their end user, right? My guy here in Wyoming, I mean, he's changing his own punch patterns. He's changing all of his girt sizings and purlin sizings. I mean, you can really design the building in the software based off of how you are going to build it in the field. And that's my big pitch to those contractors. The second is, right, my lead times are very quick in that 3 to 4 week time frame. Usually the smaller contractors with our lighter weight components, they can erect them with minimal equipment, which is a really big sell to them. And price, right? I mean, generally, at least where I'm at and in the Wyoming, Colorado area, and even most of the West, people are willing to pay a few more $1,000s to get a metal building over a wood building. And if contractors can present that option to them where, hey, we can build this 30 by 30 out of wood, but for $3,000 more, we can do it out of steel. Generally, those end users jump all over that steel building.
Have you had any issues switching contractors over from red iron to cold form?
Not necessarily. I mean, to be quite honest, my biggest problem childs are the red iron to cold form guys, right? I usually have a pretty easy transition from wood to cold form. But if I can just sit down and manage my expectations properly with my tapered frame red iron guys, really go over the building process before they have one on the ground, right? So they understand it a little bit better. If they can understand it even just a little bit before I get a building on the ground, they're already well ahead of the curve. And generally, I give me one or two with those guys, and I have them rolling with cold form for sure. I actually have a lot of red iron guys that are building, our 60-foot and in clear span niche cold form buildings all the time now.
So I know with up in the Wyoming area, especially, snow loads is a big concern. How have you found the engineering for cold form buildings? And does it impact the size of the building you can do being up there with the snow load? How does that typically go?
Generally, I have anywhere between 30 to 125 pound snow loads that I'm dealing with in Wyoming at any given altitude. And I don't really have a whole lot of problems. I mean, here right in Casper, I built a 60 by 200. Right. I mean, we're web to webbing some pretty good size 10 gauge columns to make that happen. But I just set my expectations with my people pretty clearly on what our capabilities are in these different snow loads. And if we're trying to exceed what I think our capabilities are, I promise them that I will give them the shot and I will work with engineering to see if it's something we can do. And if it's something we can't do, it's just something we can't do. But generally, I've been able to build and everything that my end users have wanted so far without too many issues.
Just to clarify, that's 60-foot clear span by 20 foot?
Yeah, yep. If I'm above my 30-pound snow load, I try to tell people 60-foot clear span, 20-foot sidewall is kind of where I need to be. I mean, obviously, I can build something bigger, and I've tried, but you get to the point where we have so many columns, base spacings that doesn't make sense anymore. But a lot of people really want a cold form building too, right? So some people are willing to spend that extra money for a little extra engineering for the cold form building. Like once they see them on the ground and actually get to touch one in person, it makes quite an impression on them.
What type of enhancements do you want to see with cold form in the next few years?
That's a good question. There's all kinds of stuff. I would love to see like construction and engineering documents meshed all into one. I think that would be a huge benefit from a field installation standpoint. I think it'll make it a little bit easier on some of those guys. Wraparound porches, right? But I think that's coming, right? That's on its way here. I've tried to talk with the engineering team, but I would love to see braceless 20-inch frames. One day, I mean, I'm sure that someday that might be a possibility, but that would be very nice, right? To see those bigger frames and bigger clear spans braceless. But other than that, I've spent a good amount of time with the ACT team, Travis being one of them. And, I trust in what ACT is doing. And I also let people know, like, you got to understand that although cold form buildings has been around for a while here in the United States, on the construction industry side of things, it's still a baby, right? So I always tell people we're continually evolving and things will only get better as the years come. We just got to be a little bit patient.
Talk to me a little bit about the Metal Sales Impact Program. You guys actually have a team established inside that kind of supports the brand. How many people do you guys have working currently? And how does everybody kind of work as a team to bring along new dealers and get them introduced to cold formed?
Yeah, so our team is really small, right? A lot of people would probably know the name Randy Morrow and Sean Dixon. Randy's my boss. I call him my work dad. And then Sean Dixon was kind of funny. I was working on a big 60 by 200 project here in Wyoming, actually, when I was still a territory manager, and just kind of joked with trying to hire Sean, and it ended up working out. We brought him on our team. Right, it's huge for us. I don't think there's a lot of people in the cold form industry side that have like the technical capabilities that Sean has and the computer experience that Sean has. I mean, the things that he does for us to train our territory managers kind of second to none. So, and as far as Randy goes, I mean, he knows the industry, he knows the people, he lets me do my thing, and we have a lot of trust for each other, and it works really well for us. Like, we have a fantastic team. I wish it was a little bit bigger, but we kind of nail it with the small group of guys that we have. I manage west of the Mississippi, although I have been spending time in the East, but we do really well. We sell a lot of buildings, and I wouldn't trade my little team for the world. Working under Randy has been a joy. And I know you know that, John. You got a pretty close relationship with him. And Randy's a one of a kind.
He
You
is.
go to a cold form building job site and Randy gets out in shorts, flip flops, and pit viper sunglasses.
Yep. That is exactly how Randy shows up to go visit a building. He's quite comfortable, and he loves cold form buildings for sure.
Oh, he does. Yeah, he sleeps and breathes cold form buildings. And that's kind of where I've gotten to be in my career with metal sales. Is that's my whole life is cold form buildings when I'm at work. So working with somebody that has as much passion as Randy helps a lot for sure.
He's great. What challenges have your team came across with the program other than like what we discussed earlier?
I'm a little lucky because I have Sean, right? And I like to think that I'm pretty versed in the software program, but there has been some times in the last year where I've just reached out to Sean where I couldn't figure something out and he knows it right off the top of his head, right? There's a lot of little shortcuts in the Act software I think that people are a little unaware of. And it has its quirks. But what I tell people is like, listen, this software program is doing an incredible job of calculating some pretty complicated engineering and doing it on the fly. So I will trade its ability to give me good engineering numbers and pricing in the amount of time that it does for the little quirks it has. And then that also goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where things are going to continually to evolve, right? The software can only get better, just like the buildings can only get better. Right now, I love the software. I've been able to do some pretty incredible things in the software. I've built, 2-story buildings in the software, 3-story buildings in the software, so I think right now we just be patient and watch it evolve and it'll just get simpler and simpler.
What is your favorite project you completed this past year?
This past year is probably the Alcova Marina here in Casper. It's kind of got a funny story. Actually, I was interviewed by US Steel when I was at IRE and I talked about this project. But basically what happened is a disgruntled employee burnt the original marina down and we rebuilt it with the first contractor. I onboarded it at Metal Sales to Cold Form Buildings. I worked with him and we built a new marina out of a cold form building, an impact building, and it came out incredible. It's got a full bar, full restaurant. It's got a very industrial interior where we left a lot of the framing exposed. I think the grand opening is finally going to come around this May. Memorial Day weekend, I think we're gonna have the grand opening, and it's a beautiful building. That's easily my favorite project for sure.
With the current situation, everybody's nervous about the market, talking about steel tariffs and things like that. What are you guys hearing, and what are you seeing for the growth of the steel industry as well as cold formed in particular?
For me, I get the tariff thing. I get where it is causing a lot of unrest, but I mean, everybody in the industry is generally taking price increases in the spring regardless. It's just something that kind of happens. Like, let's worry a little bit less about taking these price increases because if we take on these increases, it's not like we can control it. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. So, just keep providing customer service, working with my accounts, moving forward. We're not necessarily competing with the tapered frame red iron building, right? But those guys are going to take price increases just like we probably are. So I just tell guys not to worry so much about that. And let's just kind of keep driving the industry forward. I mean, if it's out of our control, we can't let it bring us down.
There's really kind of two ways to look at it, and at Act Building Systems, we always try to steer everyone towards looking at the bigger picture. You can look at everybody else who's selling cold form buildings, everybody else, have they raised their price? Have they not raised their price or whatever? But the bigger picture is, you are competing against the smaller frame red iron buildings where you can be more cost competitive. And you are competing against wood and tube frame where there's obvious advantages to having a stronger structural frame with cold form. Everybody across the industry is hurting, but everybody needs buildings too. Buildings are going to get built, and there's no reason why cold form can't, even in difficult times or when prices are going up, continue to take market share.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at it too, right, I look at a lot of commercial projects that are spec'd. If I can share the values in cold form buildings with architects who have already designed a spec project around either a tapered frame red iron building or even like I just did one where I sent in a substitution request for one the architect called out wood. Generally, those architects see the value in the quick lead times and in the accelerated construction time and are approving my substitution requests and are easily more apt to go the cold form route. They just haven't been introduced to that yet. So there's ways around that. There's avenues we can take to keep building, even if we have steel tariffs, because the value's there. You just got to get the right people to see it.
With the coming cold formed association too, a big push of that is going to be getting cold form spec'd and getting it approved more often and increasing the awareness so that more people know what it is and are aware of the benefits and the strength that it offers.
Yeah, I mean, that, like I said, that was my jam before I came to metal sales, right? I was working with architects a lot. I know how those people work. And if I can get it in front of them before a project, I can usually get them to spec it. And if I can get in front of them after a job is already even designed, I can usually get a substitution request approved. And you guys in your knowledge base has copy and paste specs for architects in there. So providing them that is pretty easy. We need more Phil selfie stick job site visits.
For sure. We absolutely do.
I started watching those. It's like, and you just see Phil, and it's so funny. Cracks me up.
Well, that's something that people don't realize too, is it's very easy to create content and to promote cold formed on social media. Is, you just go out there with your cell phone, turn it on, say, hey, this is Corey Lincoln. I'm with Metal Sales Impact. Here's a cold formed building. Here's what it looks like. It's located here. This is what the snow load is. This is what the wind loads are. Contact us today. I mean, it's really just that simple. There's a company called Waikato Sheds down in New Zealand. It's Waikato Sheds, not Waikato Sheds. I was recently corrected on that by a New Zealander, Phil. All of their sales come from their YouTube channel. And it started off, they sent 2 guys with a video camera to a job site that said, go film yourself in this job site. They posted it on YouTube. It was awkward. It was clunky. But they now have a full-time media person whose job is to just edit and create that content and get it out there. And their phone rings off the hook and people asking for the 2 guys in the videos. So, it's a great opportunity for folks who want to seize on it. Go out and see buildings and go out and film yourself on the buildings and just show what they can do.
Yeah, and recently I've been working with one of the biggest pole barn content providers in the country, and we are in the next year going to be doing some pretty incredible cold form things with him. So those are things that are down the pipe for us, which has been pretty exciting for me. I met him in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and we got some pretty big plans in the works for cold form buildings and working with him. And then, like if you look at my LinkedIn, all my completed projects, I try to circle with the drone and talk a little bit about it. And that's been really good for us because I can share that content with the account too. So it's like, here you go. There's all the drone footage. You use it for whatever you want. And it helps us a lot.
And drones are, from personal experience, I spent 6 months learning how to fly on $40 drones. I crashed all of them multiple times. I killed 4 out of the 5 for sure. And then Phil sends me his, $2,000 drone to fly with. Let me tell you the difference between a $40 drone and a $2,000 drone. I know you can still crash a $2,000 drone. Knock on wood, I have not. But it's a whole lot harder to do it just because of all the controls they have, all the safeguards against getting too close to trees, getting too close to a building or whatever. Learn on a $30 drone, and then when you're ready, upgrade. Make sure you follow all the regulations. I've got my license. It's in my wallet. Just in case somebody pulls aside and says, "Hey, do you have a license for that?" Since it is a commercial thing, but that's another great way to get some fantastic footage of buildings and just to highlight what a cold form building can be and how they're put together, and it's just a great way to get it out there.
I've built a lot of cold form buildings in some pretty incredible landscapes, right? And it's really hard to really get a picture of that cold form building in a landscape from the ground on a cell phone. But from in the air with a drone, you can really take in the landscape and the cold form building in that landscape. And it was kind of a game changer once I was actually able to get up in the air and take some pretty incredible pictures. I have a lot of really incredible photographs of the marina with the lake in the background and the red cliffs. So definitely makes a difference.
Is that the one where they had the video flying towards it and then flying through it?
I think that's a different one. I started getting a little scared of doing that because every now and then, and I don't know what the deal was, once I got the drone inside, it took a mind of its own and would just full throttle into walls. So I stopped trying to do the fly throughs.
I have not attempted to fly through with the expensive drone. I'll say that. So
I think it loses GPS signal and just freaks out. Luckily, I got like the no matter what happens to your drone 2-year return policy at Best Buy. So as long as I bring a piece of it back, they'll give me a new one.
There you go.
So Corey, what do you enjoy the most about cold form?
I think I kind of mentioned a little earlier, but I really enjoy finding guys trying to carve their own niche in the construction industry, right? Everybody's framed houses, everybody's sided houses, roofed houses, right? But not everybody has erected cold form buildings. So if I can find those kids who have some ambition and want to make a really good living for themselves and their family, and I can introduce them to cold form buildings and then help them along the way to understand the software process and the erection process, and then watching them take off with it and form a very good business and a good living off of it. That's what gets me most excited about cold form buildings, because the niche is out there. It's one of the fastest growing segments of the construction industry, but there is still tons of pie left out there for everybody in the cold form industry. I mean, there is markets all over the country that are completely untapped, right? And going into those markets and introducing them to people is very exciting. The biggest challenge is getting one on the ground, and then everything seems to fall in place after.
Corey Lincoln, thank you so much for joining us. Corey is with Metal Sales. He is part of the Metal Sales Impact team selling cold form buildings all across the country. My name is John Cosper. Her name is Lauren Toole. Thank you for joining us on Cold Form Buildings Made Easy, presented by the Cold Form Steel Building Association.